Edward Dwight joined the Air Force in 1953. He was a great test pilot, really great, like one of the very best kind of great. But there was just one problem. Edward Dwight was black, and it was the 1950s.
Less than a decade later, John F. Kennedy had pledged to put human beings on the moon. And because he was a progressive sort of guy, and because he knew he'd need the black vote when he ran for re-election, Kennedy selected Edward Dwight as the first African-American astronaut trainee.
There was just one problem. Edward Dwight was black, and it was the 1960s.
Dwight's selection may have garnered international media attention. He appeared on the covers of Ebony and Jet. But his colleagues and commanding officers really didn't want him to be there. This was a job for Protestant white guys like them, and they made sure he knew it too. They told him to his face that they weren't allowed to fire him, but that they would do everything in their power to force him to quit. They sidelined him, refused to train him, and created a threatening work environment. The White House repeatedly stepped in, forcing their hand, which just made them detest Dwight's presence all the more.
On a Friday in 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated. When Captain Edward Dwight reported for work on Monday, he found he had new orders to be a liaison officer to a test pilot school in Germany, a test pilot school that didn't even exist.
His dreams of space dashed, Dwight held out for a couple more years, but eventually resigned from the Air Force. He worked a number of jobs after that, engineer, real estate, computers at IBM, before he decided to go back to school and get a Master's of Fine Arts in sculpture. Today, Edward Dwight, 88, has created more than 100 public art sculptures featuring African heritage. Slavery in America. The Black Frontier in the American West. Jazz greats like Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, Benny Goodman, and Duke Ellington, as well as the African American experience. While many of the smaller pieces rest in the Smithsonian, Dwight has also created massive monuments, many of which grace state capitals and government land across the country. And while no one can say that Edward Dwight didn't make something significant out of his life, I can't help but wonder, and I'm certain he can't help but wonder, what might have happened had things worked out just a little bit differently.
And in case you're curious, and you should be,
it would take 20 more years before Guy Bluford became the first African-American man in space in 1983. The first African-American woman to go to space was Mae Jemison. She didn't do it until 1992.
Stay curious, my friends.